And let me know when you think we're live.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, welcome into the 11 Alert Desk. I'm Sports Director Jessica Mendoza. This is Caleb Swish, our producer here at KKTV, but overall just a football fanatic, right, Caleb?
You can say that, definitely a Bronco fanatic.
Well, we are talking all things NFL draft tonight. The Broncos are soon to be on the board. They're going to be picking very soon, we think. There's also a chance that they could move out of maybe the first round or move back a couple picks. We're going to get there in a little bit, but we wanted to jump on here a little bit early because so far, the first round's been a little bit crazy, not so much what a lot of people were expecting. Caleb, let's start by talking about Travis Hunter. The Jaguars moved up from 5 to 2, traded with the Browns to get Travis Hunter, the Heisman winner and the two-way star out of CU. What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, we all knew he was going to go high. No one saw the trade coming until just a couple minutes before the draft got started. The Jags traded up, got Trevor Lawrence, new weapon, and then a new star on the defense as well. Both sides of the ball getting help. The Jags going all in on two of the biggest prospects in college football in the last 10 years are on the same team is a pretty cool thing to say about your team.
Yeah, absolutely. There's only been one other CU Buff who went number 2 overall, and it was back in the 80s. So this is really cool for Colorado and, of course, Travis Hunter as a whole. Also, he told ESPN that he talked to both of the coordinators on the phone, so that's a good sign that
Both
potentially
sides,
Jacksonville will let him play both ways. That's what we're hoping for, right?
And no one wanted to see him go to the Browns.
I love it.
At the end of the day, this is a win for everyone.
I love it. Okay, another thing we have to talk about. Unfortunately for Broncos country, at 6th overall, the Raiders got better tonight. And Caleb, you really wanted Ashton Jeanty. A lot of Broncos fans wanted Ashton Jeanty, but unfortunately it just felt like it was way too high up for Denver to move up. How do you feel about him going to the Raiders?
It sucks. There's no other way to put it. Jeanty is going to be transformational on that offense. It's hard to see how better that Raiders offense is going to be, but Jeanty was a one-in-a-lifetime running back pick that the Broncos could have gotten, and with the offensive line they have right now, that would have been a surefire hit. Still two great running backs on the board, so anything could happen, but Jeanty going to the Raiders and the Broncos having to play him twice.
Yeah, twice
sucks
a
for
year.
us and sucks for him because so far the Broncos have a 0-2 record for last year, so maybe they just keep it going and Jeanty will be a Bronco one day.
Yeah, I know you said you really wanted Jeanty to come to Denver because the running back is the Broncos' biggest need and he's the best player at that position.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think we're still hoping that the Broncos are going to have a running back coming up here soon. It looks like the Buccaneers are on the board right now, so the Broncos should be up next. Are we having technical difficulties?
We're good.
We're good?
We're good.
Were we being heard?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I want to make sure we can keep going. Okay, what else surprised you about the first round, Caleb? I think one interesting thing, Cam Ward taken number 1 overall.
Everyone saw that coming.
Only quarterback taken so far,
So far.
very different from last year's draft, right,
Yeah.
where the Broncos got Bo Nix. What else has surprised you, though?
Jalen Walker falling as far as he
Yeah.
did. He was a player. Once he got to the teens, I thought, man, if Denver can pull this off, he is a transformational edge rusher. Going to Atlanta, though, that's a team that needed defensive help. It sucks the Broncos couldn't get him, but Jalen Walker flying as far as he did was a surprise. The Niners taking Michael Williams over him was the where I thought he would go, and you know they're both from Georgia, so Williams going over Walker was the surprise defensively for me tonight. And Will Johnson still being there. The Buccaneers pick is in, so the Broncos are on the clock.
Yeah, okay, some big news here.
It is happening. Oh,
I'm going to play Adam Schefter
here we
for a
go.
sec.
I don't know what's happening.
Jordan Schultz is reporting that with the number 19 pick, the Bucs took Emeka Egbuka, so the wide receiver out of Ohio State that some of Broncos country were hoping would come to Denver.
A lot of mock drafts had him going to Denver just with the run game, but it doesn't look like it'll happen.
He's only the second wide receiver, I believe, taken so far, correct?
Third. Hunter.
Oh, well, true. Right.
And then we now have Egbuka. So both running backs, though, are on the board. Marion Hampton out of UNC, and the pick we thought if they would stay, both Jess and I thought this would be the pick. Trevion Henderson could be here. Broncos on the clock.
Here we go.
If
you're on Facebook watching us, go in the comments. Let us know who you want to see the Broncos take. I think we're both expecting if they're not going to move back, they're going to take one of those two running backs. For me, Caleb, I would personally prefer it to be Trevion Henderson. I know technically he's not up there as high on the draft board as Amarian Hampton is, but I think a big thing for me, he didn't fumble the ball at all in his college career. Oh, I keep refreshing, just waiting to see if something's happened yet. 0 fumbles and like 600 touches in his college career at Ohio State. I think that's exactly Sean Payton's type. So that's what I'm hoping to see. What about you?
And the pro comp to him is Kamara. So you say Kamara and Sean Payton's name, excitement is going to happen. And that would be my pick as well, even with Hampton there. My big thing is I think it's just weird having 2 Tar Heel running backs back to back.
Right,
Javonte Williams taken in the 3rd round when he took him, going into a Marion Hampton. Not that he's a bad player, it's just a weird feeling. So Henderson being the pick would be awesome.
Okay, so nothing in yet. I feel like if the Broncos were going to trade back, they would have done it already.
That was something that was rumblings. You know, Shadur could go next, 21 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, so someone jumping them to get him was on the board. It doesn't seem like that's happened. We would be getting word of that being the thing going down, but it doesn't look like that is the case.
Okay, another thought from Broncos country. A lot of people wanted a tight end. The talk was about Evan Ingram. You know, why would we get a tight end with him? He is a little bit older. He's coming off of a shoulder injury. 2 big tight ends have already come off the clock. So what's a tight end that maybe you could see the Broncos take here at 20?
Taylor could be there. Mason Taylor out of LSU was a name that when draft processes started across the league, it seemed like he was a 3rd, 4th, maybe a low 2nd round pick. In the last couple of days, he has shot up to be a late 1st round pick. So Mason Taylor being the pick here would be nice. I say we hold off, take one of the Colorado kids.
Yes, I love it.
Helm or Terrence Ferguson. I like Ferguson, more rapport with Bo. But Mason Taylor here would be one of the bigger shocks with this draft, which is saying a lot. It looks like Broncos are on the clock with about 5 minutes left.
And we're used to seeing these come in like on social media a little bit quicker than they're coming in on the broadcast. So we are just refreshing, waiting.
Trying to figure it out.
Social media is still talking about Ibuka. So the Bucs last pick at 19.
The Bucs with a stacked wide receiver room. Mike Evans,
good point,
Chris Godwin. They took McMillan out of Washington last year, and now they have Ibuka. That is one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver rooms in the NFL now.
Going back, Caleb, you really wanted the Broncos to move up into the top 10. Obviously, they didn't. We kind of have a feeling that they maybe tried. They couldn't maybe afford what some of those teams were wanting. I just wonder how hard they were trying and what they were offering to give up to move up into the top 10 and maybe who they were trying to get up there too.
I think once that Jacksonville trade went through, not even just the Broncos, once it was kind of decided, because with that announcement came that the Browns were looking at a tackle for that 5th round pick. So it was on the Raiders, which is where he ended up, unfortunately. So it's just craziness here.
I'm a little nervous, I can't lie. I feel like this is taking a little long.
Nothing is coming through.
All right, what about defense, Caleb? How shocked would you be if the Broncos, instead of going an offensive weapon, running back, tight end, wide receiver, if they went someone on the defensive side of the ball?
It depends on the position. I think cornerback 3 is a need. And technically, a lot of people's top corner is still on the board, but that just feels like not the highest priority here. Edge rusher Sean Payton early in the offseason said he still thinks the team needs a top-end edge rusher. There are some prospects here who could be that. James Pierce Jr. comes to mind. Mike Green out of Marshall also comes to mind. That was another player. A lot of mock drafts had him going way higher than he's currently sitting. So one of those, a linebacker to maybe go with the Dre Greenlaw pickup would be fun. But I guess we're minutes away from seeing who the Broncos are taking with the 20th overall pick if they don't end up deciding to trade back.
All right, so I'm taking Travion Henderson. You're also going with that should be the pick, correct?
No, I'll mix it up since we're live.
Okay.
I'll say it's Hampton.
Okay, I like it. One of us has to be right. I feel like one of us has to be right here. We've seen some shocking, movement with Loveland going a little bit higher than we thought he should. So maybe that could happen for Henderson. Maybe they like Hampton after all. So we will keep refreshing. Let's go ahead and talk about what's coming up after this. The Broncos have 7 total picks in this draft as of right now. So 6 after this first round. What I really like, and I've said this in the shows, they have 3 in the top 100.
Yes.
That hasn't been the case in a while. So Sean Payton, George Payton really like the amount of talent that is, showing up a little bit later in this draft in those later rounds. Does it say the pick is in?
It does
not quite.
It says there's still 2.5 minutes on the clock for them. According to, this is the ESPN coverage we have up and watching. So time is ticking. Not a lot of going on. We will have to see what happens here.
No. What would disappoint you, Caleb? Like, what's a pick that could come in that is just not what you're looking for?
The Will Johnson pick, as great as a player as he is, and the no-fly zone would be back theoretically. It just isn't what the team needs.
Okay.
The defensive tackle depth is still good here. I feel like that would be a much better use of the pick, the linebacker pick as well. Even safety, I know last year we went out and got Brandon Jones and he had a great year, and then Hufanga in the offseason this year is a great pickup. But depth there is not a bad idea. Malachi Stark, still the best safety, is on the board. It wouldn't be my favorite pick. I wouldn't be as disappointed if it was Will Johnson, though, if they did go safety with Malachi Starks or someone. 90 seconds for the Broncos, according to ESPN.
Tick tock.
The clock is ticking. If it hits 0, the team behind them that gets the pick, and
that won't happen. That won't happen. George and Sean will not let that happen.
It's happened before.
One thing I will say is George Paton said he was the most confident going into this draft that he's ever been. This is their 3rd draft together, John and George Paton. But interesting enough, Caleb, you pointed this out to me earlier. It's only their 2nd first-round pick that they've gotten. Obviously, Bo Nix last year.
Yep. And this is only the 3rd in the last 4 or 5 years because of the Russell Wilson trade and the Sean Payton trade.
Right.
So.
All right, so after this pick comes in, we're going to be talking a little bit more about Travis Hunter. We're going to potentially be talking about Shedeur Sanders because we think he might be going actually right after this, 21 to the Steelers. And then what else the Broncos need to do in those later rounds. So stick around for that. It
has happened.
It's happened? It's in?
The pick is in. The Denver Broncos pick is in. We don't know who it is yet. We do know that it is in.
Oh.
Adele is going to be coming out to say it. I got you.
You tricked me. I'm like, who is it, Caleb?
I just wanted to show this pretty little graphic. So
I love it.
We'll have to see. It's in. They're not going to
get
timed out.
Oh, no, Caleb. Oh, no. We got a cornerback. Jahdae Barron out of Texas. That is who the Broncos have picked 20th overall. I don't know if y'all can see Caleb's face right now. He's not super thrilled. We were both hanging on for a running back. That's the Broncos' biggest need, right?
Crazy for that to happen.
I mean, this was so off of our radar. We made, how many graphics did you make, Caleb? 50?
I made 50 graphics for this, and Jahdae Barron is not one of them.
Wow. This is shocking.
This is a crazy, crazy pick.
So I know you're disappointed. Let me ask you this. Why would the Broncos, knowing that Omarion Hampton and Travion Henderson still on the board, running back's their biggest need, there's still some great tight ends out there, why would they not have moved back? They must have a lot of confidence in this cornerback.
The teams following technically don't need a running back. The Steelers could surprise, though, and take one of them if they're not sold on Shedeur. This is a crazy pick for the Broncos to make. The cornerback depth was an issue, which I mentioned talking about Will Johnson, but it wasn't this much of an issue. Jahdae Barron, number 7, I guess it was meant to be. Shout out to John Elway, but flabbergasted is the only word I can describe what I'm feeling right now.
Well, he must be thrilled knowing that he gets to join a defense with Pat Surtain, the Defensive Player of the Year. I wonder how much he expected this, how much he had really talked to the Broncos beforehand. Because like I said, this was a player that was very much not on my radar.
I could be incorrect, but I don't remember seeing his name as being a top 30 visit.
Right.
I don't remember seeing a cornerback on their top 30 visit. Maybe Sean and George think these 2 running backs are going to slide to the 2nd round.
Yeah, maybe.
There could be another trade up. It's entirely possible. Jahdae Barron for Texas.
You're pretty shocked, I can tell.
Yeah, it's hard to just put into words.
Something stuck out to me when we heard from Sean and George Paton in the pre-draft press conference. Sean said, we're not going to overlook a crystal for a blender if we need a blender. Or, basically saying that if your biggest need is a blender, but there's a crystal right in front of you, you got to take the crystal. So hopefully I worded that correctly. But it kind of goes back to taking the best player available. Yeah. That must have been what this came down to. They felt like he was the best player available on the board right now. When looking at the running backs, yes, they need one. The running backs are their blenders, right?
Yeah.
But they feel like they can get them later on in the draft.
Yeah, the Henderson specifically was a late riser. I remember I was hoping the Broncos would take him in the 2nd round, but I would be just as happy if he was the first round pick. It's not. It is Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas. He's 5'10", 194 pounds.
There you go.
This is crazy. Just a lot of holes still fulfilled with the picks that they have. That it's hard to put into words what I am feeling right now. This is crazy to see.
Well, it looks like
I did say with that no-fly zone is on the table, 2.0 with this pick and Pat Surtain. Two first-round picks under George Payton are cornerbacks.
Yeah, and he won big on his last one. Obviously, he picked right there. He's got an eye for it.
Put that in perspective.
Sure.
Defensive Player of the Year is Patrick Surtain.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best corner in the league, and the team that has him in the first round
it's gonna go.
took Jahdae Barron, a cornerback.
Yeah.
On paper, none of that makes sense.
That's why we're so shocked here. Did you make any graphics for any cornerbacks?
Will Johnson was the only corner. If you want to count Travis Hunter, that was a pipe dream. But this is Jahdae Barron's time as a Denver Bronco.
So we are hoping to get some reaction from the View House coming in. I don't know how quickly that's going to come in.
I'm still waiting to see when and if that happens.
I fully imagined like a woo from the crowd there, right? Like lots of Broncos hats and shirts and hoodies, and excited. I can't imagine that they got that reaction at the View House.
I'm sure it was a lot like mine of just pure confusion and sadness.
And again, like I'm not. I think it's like, okay, let's take a step back. I think this is probably a really great player. Where does he fit in? I'm not really sure. Obviously, I feel like they have bigger needs. But I think what you brought up about George Payton having an eye for cornerbacks, I think that's a really good point, and that should give people a little bit more relief.
I worry about how many corners we've taken in the last couple of years, because it isn't just Pat Surtain. Riley Moss is on that list. Even last year, Chris Abrams-Drain, who had some starts there at the end of the season and showed a lot of promise that someone could be the cornerback 3, and here we are. Wondering what he's thinking. I'm wondering what Riley Moss is thinking. This is not what anyone saw.
So what about this, Caleb? I know that Sean Payton likes to kind of like take players and plug them into different spots, right? Maybe he could play safety. That was kind of more of an area of need in there as a defensive back versus cornerback. What are your thoughts on that?
It happens a lot. I didn't see it look like they had him called as a corner. So unfortunately, I don't know if that is the case. But this is the AFC West particularly is turning into kind of the gunslinger division. Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, obviously, who knows what the Raiders are going to do at quarterback right now. The Steelers pick is in. This could be where we see Shedeur Sanders go, but if that doesn't happen, the Raiders could do a trade back up to the first or high in the second and take Shedeur. Having all those corners to cover the field makes sense, again, on paper, but when you were best player on the team, just won Defensive Player of the Year, and is a corner, it's hard not to look at this like a wasted pick, especially if the Broncos don't walk out of here with Hampton or Henderson and have to settle for and I say settle in just a general terms. There's definitely a fall off from Henderson to the later ones of Scatabo and some of the other running backs later in the draft that I think a lot of Broncos fans would be upset if we missed out on a top running back for Jahdae Barron.
Okay, I hate to switch gears, but we were just talking about Shedeur Sanders. He was like the biggest question mark coming into this year's draft. I know.
Just saw.
I think you're seeing what I'm talking about right now. He could have gone in the top 10. People were saying he was going to slide out of the first round. The Steelers were like the last team in the first round we thought would take him at 21. They passed on him.
Derek Harmon out of Oregon, I believe, is defensive tackle. That's a great pick. That's a good defense that's now only going to get better.
Yeah.
Great edge rushers, and now you have a big man in the middle to eat up some more blockers.
What does this mean for Shedeur Sanders? I mean, we saw some rumors out there of, NFL scouts saying that he was a really bad interview. He was a little bit too confident. And at the end of the day, Caleb, what sticks out to me is he took the most sacks in college football last year. Where do you think he might land at this point? I think
he's headed for the second round. I think, and we talked this a couple weeks ago when it was revealed that he wouldn't be attending the draft. And we were initially like, that just sometimes happens. Maybe he just knew that this wasn't his time to go in the first round. And, I don't know if that's so crazy. I think it would be more crazy if another quarterback gets taken above him a la Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss, who a lot of people, again, one of those late risers, was not considered even a top 3 round pick, is now a first round projected pick in terms of talent.
Right.
I'm still in shock. It is hard for me to put together.
Can
words.
we talk about? Yeah, I know, right?
It is pretty crazy. But we can go back to talking about the Buffs. I just man, a corner.
Yeah.
And maybe the Broncos did do a lot to try and get up there, to get Genty. Maybe that was just they were the running back they were sold on, and not getting him, they had to scramble.
Mm-hmm.
But
we're going to hear from Sean and George Payton really shortly. Mm-hmm. They always hop on a call with the media coming up soon. Yeah. So they're going to, give their coach speak, I should say, because they're going to sell it as this was our guy. This is the guy that we wanted all along. I don't know if that's the truth or not. Like you're saying, anything could be true. They tried really hard. They were on the clock. Yeah, they used up the entire clock, right?
This meeting is going to be one of the more interesting ones in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Jahdae Barron. Yeah, it's a crazy pick. The most we can hope for is a no-fly zone 2.0.
Yeah.
The talent is there. The projected talent is there. So we'll just have to see what happens. Yeah,
I hope, Caleb, that maybe not by the end of this year, but by the end of next year, he will make such an impact that we can look back on this live stream and laugh and say, oh, look at Caleb, he had no clue at the time,
I was down on the Bo Nix pick initially. I will say that. I was Michael Panic Sky. Obviously, that didn't work out with Atlanta last year. But I wasn't high on Bo Nix. I knew who Bo Nix was, though.
Yep.
And I had a graphic made for Bo Nix.
Right, yeah. He was on, at least on your...
He was on the radar.
Yep.
The cornerback position just wasn't even on our radar. As we talked before this draft got started, that, what are we going to talk about? And it was, what are the positions the Broncos, don't
will
need?
Not, yes,
and
will absolutely not.
And then we were like corner.
Right.
And, here we are, Jahdae Barron, first-round pick for the Denver Broncos.
Okay, hopefully we can go back to that. Let's pull back up this CU graphic. We already talked about Travis Hunter, but in case you missed it, the Jaguars moved up from 5 to 2 with the Browns to take Travis Hunter, our Heisman Trophy winner. And Shedeur Sanders, Caleb, I specifically remember, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, you came into the sports office and you were like, hey, Shedeur's not going to the draft. I think that's a bad sign. And Travis obviously was there tonight with his father, which was a really cool story. And you were like, I think this means he's going to slide. At the time, I was confident he wouldn't slide further than 9 and end up going to the Saints. But that obviously has not happened. He's still available. I know he took a visit to see the Steelers as well, and they just passed on him at 21.
It's hard to say. We're going to find out more once that pick is made. Of what happened, what the draft analysis was for him from whoever does take him. But him sliding past the Steelers, I think just kind of, unless a trade-up happens, cements that Shedeur Sanders is going to be a second-round pick, which has happened before. Mel Kiper on ESPN talking about the quarterbacks that slip, Aaron Rodgers, Dan Marino. Is Shedeur on that same level? Only time is going to tell. But it's all about going to the right team, and it seemed like everyone was on board with the Steelers for Shedeur. That's a team with a great defense, with great receivers to surround him with, and it all just didn't come together. They went defensive tackle out of Oregon. Okay,
so we have round 2 coming up tomorrow. I believe the Broncos' next pick is at 51. Caleb, what would you like to see at 51 from the Denver Broncos? Are we still thinking tight end, one of those later guys from, Helm or Ferguson? Are we still thinking a running back, one of those guys is going to be available?
If one of those two guys is at the top of the draft, the Denver Broncos need to do whatever they can to get up there to get him. If it's Hampton, if it's Henderson, I just don't think you can walk out of the top 2 rounds of the draft, especially in this draft where the running back class depth can go into the second round.
Sure.
And it's such a position need. We talked about that. Like, the Ashton Genty pick would have been the best player available for your biggest hole.
Yeah.
And now you're looking to fill your biggest hole with potentially not someone who's starter quality. And when you look at that room, it's Jaleel, it's Audric, it's 2 other
Blake Watson and Tyler Bidet,
who are practice squad kind of participants this last season.
I mean, we saw some really good stuff in training camp from Blake Watson.
Yeah.
We saw some really good stuff from Tyler Bidet early in the season before he
Yeah.
got injured. And Jaleel, he had these spurts, but he just wasn't consistent.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much the Broncos really feel that true need. I mean, they said they're going to get a running back in this draft. They feel like it's a deep draft at running back, too. That is something we haven't mentioned yet. So if they really feel confident about that, then maybe that starts to make a little bit more sense. A position group that I don't think we've talked about yet is wide receiver. That's another one that the Broncos said they will be adding to, whether it's in the draft or through free agency. I feel like they could do both. They're going to have a lot of new faces in that room come training camp. What are some names still available that you might think would be a good fit for the Broncos?
The first one that comes to mind is Bo Nix's brother.
Yes. Love it.
His name just escaped me. I wanted to say Travis Hunter.
I know, it starts with a T, though, doesn't it?
It does. There's so many wide receivers. I know Michael Golden is still available. That was another name a lot of mock drafts had going much higher than he is right now. Some to the Cowboys, some to even the Denver Broncos. Golden is still there, and Buka we saw it go just before us. A lot of people had him pegged as another really good wide receiver, so he's going to a great room. Tez Johnson.
There we go.
Right. Tez Johnson.
I'm almost there, and it popped into my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a really cool story, and why not add another organ
A sleeper for both of us is Torrey Horton.
Yes,
CSU,
love it.
Great.
Yeah.
Would be, I think, an awesome sleeper pick for the Broncos to take, but at this point, I think anything is up in the air with the cornerback selection.
Yeah.
It's going to be a crazy next 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, a very low amount of first-round trades, which is weird as it is. So I don't know what's going on with that. Obviously, that one at number 2 was pretty crazy. You mentioned Torrey Horton. I'm glad you brought him up because we're talking so much about these CU Buffs, right? But I think Torrey Horton has a really good chance to go sometime, maybe tomorrow even.
Yeah.
But he is technically the 13th best wide receiver. That's how ESPN has him ranked. So we'll see where he ends up. But it would be really cool to see him in orange and blue.
I would love that, especially after what happened today.
All right, well, we got to start getting ready for our 10 o'clock newscast where we're going to be talking a lot more about this. Let it sink in and then kind of present it in the newscast. Caleb, closing thoughts on the Broncos' 20th overall pick and just what they need to do from here.
Getting the running back position figured out before getting into that third day, I think, is the biggest priority tomorrow. I would also say their biggest need is to tell fans what the plan is, because if you really do just look at the facts, the last 2 years, the cornerback position was a hole, 2 years ago, but has quickly become, I would say, the Broncos' strongest personnel group.
Yeah.
The best player on defense on the team. Riley Moss, a fantastic second season.
Yeah.
Chris Abrams-Drain showed great signs. Jalen McMillan,
as a rookie.
we haven't even talked about McMillan during the Browns game. Clutched in for us with 2 interceptions. This just seems like a weird pick.
Yeah,
the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, what?
Trying to make sense of it in our heads here. We're going to do our best to do that on 11 News at 10 o'clock. We also have the Nuggets in action, Game 3 with the Clippers, so it's a pretty fun night. We're going to go catch up and see what's going on over there. Michael Porter Jr. is playing despite a left shoulder injury. But thank you for joining us. Caleb, real quick, we do not have any reaction, correct?
We do not have any reaction.
Okay.
It doesn't look like anything came in, unfortunately.
Hopefully we'll get that for you guys also coming up tonight at 10 just to see kind of, you saw Caleb's reaction, you saw my reaction and all that confusion. Hopefully we're going to see some further fan reaction coming up tonight at 10. But as always, thank you for joining us at the 11 Alert Desk, and we'll see you tonight at 10.